our meetings to, Trump's attorneys? Shouldn't that have been in the paperwork?
A great question. As many people have said, I think this morning at 8 o'clock, as U.S. attorneys' offices around the country opened up, you've got assistant U.S. attorneys now inserting that language into plea agreements across the country for this very reason. Why is it not there before? Why is it not included in Mueller's document to this point? Because it simply doesn't happen. Again, it's like being traded from the Milwaukee Brewers to the Cubs and then sharing the Cubs playbook with the Milwaukee Brewers. Nobody even contemplates that the loyalties would be compromised that way. This is simply, again, way outside of the normal processes by which things work. And it's not simply a matter, once again, of the internal Department of Justice policies. It undermines, as we said, the focus and the investigation. And while it plainly, this language probably will be in future agreements, it wasn't there before because it is so absurd that this has happened. We are reluctant to engage in hyperbole with you on a regular basis, but this is unprecedented. It just doesn't happen this way. And that's why the language isn't there. I suspect Bob Mueller and all of the prosecutors today are thinking about including another paragraph in those plea agreements that says, oh, by the way, now that you're cooperating with us, that means you're not cooperating with those with whom you've had a prior joint defense agreement. That's just understood, but apparently it now has to be in writing.
Well, Jim, I think it's far more common for a former Major League Baseball teammate to be stealing signs from his former ball club for the benefit of the new ball club than perhaps this legal thing, as you mentioned. Explain to me the concept of a joint defense agreement, if you'd be so kind. I know that Michael Flynn had one with the Trump team, and when Michael Flynn became a cooperating witness with Mueller, he withdrew from his joint defense agreement. But Donald Trump has 32 people that he has entered into these agreements with. Does this mean he can effectively conspire with any of the witnesses within the purview of Mueller's investigation?
The joint defense agreement is an entirely proper way of defending a case. As you indicated, Mike, simply a situation where multiple defendants, multiple targets, multiple subjects can appropriately, without violating anything ethically or legally, get together and agree to share information and to discuss strategy among themselves as a common defense against the prosecution of their clients and of the case more generally. And so the joint defense agreement, nothing wrong with that. As you indicated, as these various participants in the joint defense agreement part from that and then throw their lot in with Bob Mueller, they do withdraw from that for the very reason that this Manafort, Kevin Downey matter today is so outrageous, because you're no longer allied with the defendants. You're no longer talking with them about strategy. You are now working with the government. And so the situation here is that not only the joint defense agreement continues with, as you indicated, 32 people in the president's circle. That can continue. But you can't have someone working both sides. You can't have a joint defense agreement and an agreement with the prosecution, likewise, to discuss strategy and substance. Frankly, again, I think there are some real ethical problems to the extent that Kevin Downey and others were engaging in this, and that is plainly going to be fleshed out in the future here.
Jim, my understanding, reporting of others, I don't have the shrewd legal mind that you might have, sir, but Kevin Downing and Rudy Giuliani, the conversations that they had is not privileged, that this information could be subject to subpoena. Is it likely that Mueller is writing up subpoenas right now for Manafort's attorney Downing and Rudy Giuliani? Can he bring the content of those conversations under scrutiny, Jim?
Well, and absolutely. The notion, again, that you have not only violated these agreements, but you're almost turning yourselves into witnesses, right, as the attorneys, whether you're Rudy Giuliani, Kevin Downing, others, because now the very events that you're engaged in, the very actions you're engaged in, may well partake of obstruction. There may be some witness tampering here, all kinds of things. We don't know for sure. We don't know the dimensions of this. But does Bob Mueller have the capacity and the authority to investigate that? Absolutely. This is the other reason why this is so not only unprecedented, but quite remarkable. These attorneys are arguably turning themselves into witnesses about the very thing that they're defending against, which is obstruction of justice. Can Bob Mueller issue subpoenas to ask them what they have done? And is it outside of a privilege? Probably so, on both accounts. And whether he will do that, whether he needs to do that with all the information he probably already has, we again will remain to be seen. But they have put themselves in a very different spot. Again, assuming these reports are accurate and true, they're now in a very different position because they're witnesses to and participants in conversations that are relevant to obstruction issues, generally speaking. Whether it's obstruction is another issue, but certainly appropriate for Bob Mueller, if he chooses to do so, to investigate further.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It's Mueller time again. So we have called upon James Santelle, a fine former U.S. attorney, a friend of ours, and a wonderful resource. Jim, you might have missed Judge Napolitano on the Fox News last night, but Napolitano was laying out effectively the prior Manafort pleading and the 175-page document in which Manafort admitted guilt not just to federal crimes, but also to state crimes in 3 separate states, said this was the most ironclad pleading of guilt he had ever seen. Is this effectively pardon proof? Do you share the opinion of Napolitano that Manafort's goose is cooked here? There's no way that Trump can pardon him out of the state crimes, even if he can get him out of federal prison.
As we have talked before, the pardon power of the president applies only federally. And so your focus and Judge Napolitano's comments last night to that extent are exactly right. Questions of what is and inside and outside of federal jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, plainly those are things that lawyers and judges work to determine and to assess a whole lot. But as we discussed yesterday, Manafort pled guilty to 2 counts. One of them is this omnibus conspiracy against the United States of America going back 2006 to 2017, and it does throw in the kitchen sink. It is the things that were the subjects of his trials, both in Virginia and the District of Columbia, and many other related things around that. And then, of course, there was a witness tampering charge as well. It is tight, and there's no doubt that the judge at the time that Manafort entered this plea heard from both sides, the government and Manafort, took the plea with a complete understanding that Paul Manafort knew what he was pleading to. He was admitting guilt to all that offense conduct chalked into that omnibus count. And ironclad is a tough standard. It's a high standard. But there's an awful lot there that suggests that, again, he understood exactly what he was pleading to. Now, can the president pardon him? Certainly he can. But then the state authorities, and we've talked about the New York Attorney General, she certainly has some options to prosecute under state authorities. And again, the most important thing that we continue to focus on is the pardon then lifts from Paul Manafort any Fifth Amendment privileges. So the extent that there are other investigative things that others may want to pursue with him, likewise, he doesn't have that protection anymore. And so once again, very broadly, the pardon power here does not accomplish the shutdown of this investigation. And although it may provide Paul Manafort and his lawyers with some small comfort today, it does not release him from responsibility and culpability long term.
Jim, if you could speak to timing and process. CNN reporting today, Trump indicating that a pardon for Manafort is not off the table. If Trump pardons Manafort today, when does Manafort walk out of jail? And I guess the follow-up is, how long would it take for the states of New Jersey, Virginia, California, these other states that have uncharged state crimes that apparently he pled guilty to, how long would it take for them to, charge or sentence based on his admission?
Sure. 2 great questions. One, probably a little bit more immediate. The second, longer term in terms of the state focus. Again, we're working a little bit under not that unprecedented grounds here, but this is unusual too. That we've got a defendant, Paul Manafort, who, as I said yesterday, probably going to be sentenced January, maybe February at the latest. A pardon today for those things for which he has been convicted would plainly be the subject of some review by the district court judge who's hearing this case of Paul Manafort. The pardon is then presumably presented to that judge, who would presumably then close out the case and dismiss it based upon the fact that that pardon has been entered. And so that could be a bit more expeditious and a bit more in the near future here. Again, that doesn't mean, however, that the state authorities are also subject to the closure of their investigations. Wherever the Attorney General of the state of New York is, others may be in their investigations. No rush on those things. They want to get their charges right, too. But they certainly can virtually immediately charge on their counts. Again, the federal pardon does not prohibit state prosecution. And so while that would be a little bit more of an attenuated, a little more extended process, nothing to say that that could not follow fairly shortly on the heels of something here. I would just also comment that, again, I'm plainly not the president's lawyer, but to the extent that he is truly, and he did not close it down, truly contemplating a pardon. Again, we speak a lot in hyperbole these days about constitutional crises and those kinds of things. If he does that, this is really the time for all Americans to ponder very carefully what our executive branch is doing. We've got a justice system that contemplates the proper presentation of evidence, investigations done under the supervision of decent and hardworking prosecutors, in this case, Bob Mueller. The notion that the president, who has threatened this before and dangled this out even through his lawyers many months ago, would truncate that proper process, rule of law in America, justice, due process, and would do this, frankly, out of his own self-interest, is highly, highly troubling and could send us into, if not calamity, certainly a time when Congress should come forth and pursue whatever it needs to do. And we still would hope, plainly, that there would be a Mueller report at some point commenting not only upon these kinds of things, but on the extent to which there has been obstruction in the past.
If I understand you, Jim, you're very politely saying impeach the bastard. But I've got a different question for you, sir. You texted me last night after your appearance on this fine show, and you pointed out the curious unilateral disclosure of the proposed Jerome Corsi plea agreement that specifically references a connection between Russians and the president via Roger Stone. Can you please explain that concept for those that didn't have the benefit of a text from you last night, Jim?
Sure, absolutely. So Jerome Corsi, this curious fellow who's known for banning about a lot of conspiracy theories on swift boats and birtherism, those kinds of things, plainly is an ally of this fellow Roger Stone, who, as we know, has been previously identified not by name, but as person one in some of the Russian indictments of this past summer. Roger Stone, we also know, much affiliated with the Trump campaign and with the president himself, although not in an official capacity, undeniably involved with the Trump campaign in 2016 and before. So Roger Stone, once again, is the connection between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks and Assange. So what happens? Well, again, we've got a curious process here. Again, we just don't see these things. We've got Bob Mueller, who plainly is talking to Jerome Corsi about what he knows in connection with Roger Stone, WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. And at some point, this has to be fairly close to some agreement with Jerome Corsi. Bob Mueller sends to his lawyers a proposed plea agreement, proposed information, charges likely, so that they can take a look at it. You don't do that kind of a thing unless you're fairly close to an understanding with the defendant. You're not simply sharing with a defendant your theories of the case and the prosecution. But he basically proposes to Corsi's lawyer that Corsi pleads guilty to one count of lying, committing perjury, in connection with, again, his relationship with Roger Stone and with WikiLeaks. And what is it in particular? Well, and why is this important to the connection with the president and the Trump campaign more generally? Because we've got these emails in late July of 2016, early August of 2016. Roger Stone emailing Jerome Corsi saying, go to Julian Assange, who's now at the embassy in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and get those WikiLeaks emails. We've got those happening again late July, early December. Early August or so. Stone again sends to Corsi another email saying, just go to this fellow named Ted Malloch, who's going to be your intermediary. Get the emails basically from Julian Assange, and then we've got some follow-ups like what's from Corsi to Stone, talking about those engagements. So what we have here is through Roger Stone, affiliated with the Trump campaign, telling Jerome Corsi, get the emails from Julian Assange, from WikiLeaks, come back, plainly with the understanding that they have information. These are basically the John Podesta emails. And, it's very significant that on one of those emails, the first one is July 25th, for example, and all sorts of things are happening in the political history of our nation at the time. That's 3 days before Donald Trump publicly called on the Russians to hack Hillary Clinton's private email server. 3 days before Paul Manafort denied he had any connections to the Russians, said it was absurd. All these kinds of things are happening contemporaneous with these emails going back and forth. Now, Jerome Corsi says that never happened. I put this together on my own. I understood that probably Podesta's emails were the next in line. But they certainly, that theory is certainly not suggested by the email exchanges. So the connection, again, between the president's campaign, perhaps the president himself, through Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi, getting the emails. The emails are the things that the Russians have produced, the DNC hack, all of this tied together through this person of Jerome Corsi, who, again, the final piece of the story is that he decides in the end, apparently, not to go ahead with this plea agreement that Robert Mueller has offered to him to plead guilty to one count of perjury, and instead, once again, engages in this equally curious and I would almost ask where his lawyers are. He releases them this document that is the proposed plea agreement and the charges that, frankly, from my perspective, establishes certainly probable cause, maybe even evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that you, in fact, committed a crime. And so he's releasing all this into the public domain.
Jim Santelle, I got a few more questions. If you'll bear with us, come back with us. More Devil's Advocates on the other side.
Russia, if you're listening.
Can we call that treason? Why not?
Hi, my name is Shantae, your local Hyatt pharmacist. With more than 10 locations here in the Milwaukee area, we're here to simplify your lives one script at a time. With free delivery to your home or work, where all your medications are brought together in one convenient dosage packaged, individualized to your daily medication regimen. We set up in-house calls with the licensed pharmacist to assist in medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit us at our website, HAYATRX.com.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic Corner Tavern.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. James Santelle, former U.S. Attorney, thanks for sticking around for a few more minutes. I'm dying to ask you, Trump has responded to Mueller, at least has responded in writing. If I understand it, Trump has told Mueller he was unaware of the Trump Tower meeting. That seems quite implausible to me. And he also says he didn't hear about from Roger Stone about WikiLeaks. It seems like he may have exposed himself to perjury. I'm just speculating, Jim. But he said, to the best of my recollection, is that going to give this president any legal cover to your opinion, sir?
I go back to this fundamental notion that the three of us have discussed for many months here, and that is that Bob Mueller knows an awful lot. He has been doing this for 18 months, which, again, in the scope of white-collar investigations is not a long time, but look at all that he has done. He has gotten information about overseas transactions involving Russians. He is focused upon the members of the campaign, Paul Manafort, as you said before, Michael Flynn, others, Rick Gates, George Papadopoulos, who right now is a resident of the state of Wisconsin, as we know, and all of these things, all of them suggest that Bob Mueller has a true treasure trove of information, and we probably know about a third of it. And so when the president, whatever his statements are, we certainly give him the absolute right to deny involvement in any criminal conduct. That's a protection every American has. But in the end, Bob Mueller will be the one who is going to measure the president's denials, including his answers to his questions about collusion and about a conspiracy against what he knows from other sources. And that includes intelligence, that includes bank records, that includes witness testimony for the grand jury. And in the end, just as Corsi and Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn and all of these others, and Paul Manafort, all of them who have pled guilty to various forms of obstruction, witness tampering, lying, all of that, Bob Mueller will measure the president's statements against what he knows and come to a decision about whether or not there should be a finding in his report that the president has lied, made misrepresentations based upon the otherwise unmistakable cache of information that Bob Mueller has. And so, again, fully anticipate that the president, as will others, as has Corsi today and others, denied any criminal involvement. That is their right. They can certainly plead guilty to.
I'm sorry, Jim. We're out of time, man. It always goes so quick. Thank you, James Santelle. We are the Devil's Advocates. Hour 2 coming next. I'd like to end with this thought. Yes, collusion. Yes, collusion.
Thank you, Jim.
More Devils. We'll be right back.
This Russia thing.
Believe me.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus.
Pardon in play. Missing CIA director. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump isn't ruling out a pardon for his convicted former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. White House correspondent Caitlin Collins.
Despite Sarah Sanders saying just 24 hours ago in that briefing that there had been no conversations she was aware of about pardoning Paul Manafort, President Trump is now saying that he's not going to rule it out and that it's not off the table, asking the New York Post in this interview, why would I rule it out?
Defense Secretary James Mattis says the U.S. has nothing showing a link between the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
We have no smoking gun that the Crown Prince was involved, not the intelligence community or anyone else. There is no smoking gun.
The Senate's expected to vote today on a bill that calls for the U.S. to end its military support for the Saudi war in Yemen. Now that she's been nominated by Democrats, Nancy Pelosi is closer to becoming House Speaker again, and she expects to work with President Trump.
I would expect nothing less than that from this President of the United States. We are a co-equal branch of government. My power there springs from the vote of the members of the House of Representatives.
Pelosi still needs to win a vote of the new House in January to become Speaker. There are now 286 cases of possible and confirmed acute flaccid myelitis in the United States this year, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That includes 116 confirmed cases of the rare polio-like illness, also known as AFM, that leads to sudden onset of paralysis. 10 more cases confirmed just this week. Better news about interest rates from the Federal Reserve Chairman today had positive impact on Wall Street. The Dow up 614, S&P up 61.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. That means it could be you, your best man, your worst man. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon. It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
The sexual abuse case involving a Texas priest led investigators to the Catholic Diocese of Houston. Correspondent Clayton Neville says a search warrant was executed unannounced at the office.
The Montgomery County District Attorney's Office is sorting through documents obtained from the Catholic Diocese of Houston in its case against a Southeast Texas priest. Montgomery County DA Brett Ligon says the search was limited to information regarding Father Manuel LaRosa Lopez.
This is not a search warrant against the Catholic Church, nor is it a search warrant against its employees. It's a search warrant to obtain records for the full and fair investigation and prosecution.
The priest is charged with 4 counts of indecency with a child. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Justice Department says 2 Iranian computer hackers have been charged in connection with a multi-million-dollar cybercrime and extortion scheme that targeted U.S. government agencies and businesses. Prosecutors say the 2 men had more than 200 victims.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines.
A Milwaukee County jury may have the fate of Pabst beer in their hands as Pabst and Miller Coors battled it out in the courtroom. An inmate at the Milwaukee County Jail escaped from the facility this morning while taking out trash. The Milwaukee Common Council voted to confirm the appointment of former firefighter Everett Cocroft to the Fire and Police Commission yesterday. The Milwaukee Brewers have taken over the operations of their 3 team stores at Miller Park, which they say should lead to lower prices and a wider range of items. And the Bucks play the Bulls tonight at the Forum. Outside tonight, a chance of light snow, lows in the mid-20s. Tomorrow, rain and snow in the morning and then cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the mid-30s. For Friday, partly sunny with highs in the upper 30s. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back, hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Thank you once again to James Santelle, a fine guest, 2 days in a row. You know what I love, Dom?
What's
I
that?
love Mueller time.
Yeah, we should crack some beers. It's going to get celebratory here soon, I hope. If Mueller can keep his act together, man. I hate to see the man get played.
Mueller get played. Mueller ain't getting played. Trump's getting played right now.
I mean, I would like to think so. But, come on, man. How do you have your attorneys communicating with Trump attorneys and that's allowed? It's not, like, you missed that one? I mean, this is Manafort and Trump. I mean, I think that absolutely they're going to do whatever they can, again, if conspiracy is there, they're going to do everything they can to stop the prosecution.
Why did Paul Manafort end up in prison before his trial in Virginia? I think the term was witness tampering.
Yes.
Do you think that Trump and Manafort got away with anything in this case?
Everybody has been outplayed.
Do you think there's going to be, I mean, I hear him say it, but do you think there will be no ramification for the Trump team? I mean, Rudy Giuliani could be at the end of a subpoena by the end of the week. There's no presidential
I hope so.
shield for Rudy Giuliani.
Sure there is. Pardon.
What's that?
You pardon him. You don't think that, I mean, this is
him
Trump.
from a subpoena.
Okay, so he goes and say he doesn't listen, he doesn't abide by the subpoena. He doesn't talk, Rudy. What are you going to do, convict him? Then what happens? He gets pardoned.
Oh, so you think that's the get-out-of-jail-free card for all of Trump's associates? He's just going to sit there with the magic wand with the fiat and pardon, and there will be no
think
ramification.
That's entirely the case. And maybe some political ramifications, but so what?
Political ramifications like impeachment. I mean, Jim Santelle, a little too polite to say it, but he is basically implicitly stating that if Donald Trump were to, pardon Manafort, he effectively is expecting congressionally led constitutional remedies. That means impeachment, my friend.
Are you going to impeach without Republicans, Crudy?
I think you bring it. I think you bring the impeachment trial in the House. Whether or not you convince Republicans, I think there would be a few more willing Republicans. You might be closer to a supermajority than you think if Donald Trump starts wagging and giving, pardons to Manafort, who's already been convicted of 8 crimes, pled guilty to 175 pages of other enumerated crimes. What, are they not crimes anymore because Trump said they're not crimes? The man's still a criminal. His own daughter said there's blood on his hands. And there's still speculation, at least from this guy, that there's a greater crime that is being covered up. Otherwise, why would Paul Manafort choose to take this action? Why would he choose to cover up with Trump, to witness tamper? He's effectively the witness, and he's tampering with himself by sharing with the president. Yeah, I don't know which way the witness tampering goes.
Come on, man. Manafort's in jail
tampering.
in solitary confinement, right? I mean, Manafort's not sharing anything. It's his attorneys, right?
Well, at the direction of their client, Paul Manafort. So there's got to be a worse ramification for telling the truth than lying. What's worse than what we already know? Perhaps collusion with Russians, certainly bank fraud, money fraud, and a number of other fraudulent circumstances. He's already been convicted, and barring one juror, he would have been convicted on 18 counts in his first
18
trial.
or 180, Crudy. When the president can wave the magic wand, it doesn't matter. Now, there may be...
Who cares if you sit in a state pen or a federal pen? I mean, because ultimately Manafort's going to the pen. He could be forgiven all his federal transgressions, and he's still going to prison for state crimes. Why would he be multiplying that currently, in your opinion? There's
the only thing I can
something
think of
worse
is
that
the
we don't
math.
know about yet.
Well, conspiracy with the Russians, Crudy, I think is pretty bad. I mean, that's, I don't know, call it treason, perhaps? I mean, what else do you think it could be?
You think we're going to hang Manafort high for treason? For sharing
I don't know if
Hillary Clinton, for weaponizing Hillary Clinton's emails? I don't think that's going to get the man hung. I mean, hell, there'll be Republicans out there claiming that's the First Amendment.
Well, perhaps, and I'm not down with the capital punishment, but treason perhaps, conspiracy certainly. But what else is out there, Crudy? What is this whole thing about?
I'm not clear that conspiracy with the Russians is worse than the crimes he has already been convicted of in terms of jail time that he will ultimately have to serve because of the crimes. But I think if Donald Trump starts waving that magic wand of pardon, I think
he did it today to the New York Post, Crudy. He just did it.
He said he's not taking anything off the table.
Right.
Okay, well that's different.
Wait. Let's be clear. Is that not
pardon.
What? He doesn't have to, Crudy. I understand.
He's
but
also
this
threatened
is
to fire
the
Mueller.
slow burn, right? I mean, let's just get used to what we're used to. Trump just
Well,
said
he's
today,
throwing
the
out
New
the
York
trial
Post.
balloon.
He's throwing it out there. Of course, he's throwing it out there. And what's happening? There's nothing. Republicans aren't saying boo about it, and you don't get anything done without the Republicans.
So you think it will take a Republican for history to judge this man? You think that
history will judge. I mean, to impeach, certainly.
Okay, let me state it differently then. Do you think that somehow the entire Republican Party, there is no Republicans of conscience serving in the U.S. Senate? You think they're all going to stand with this man once Mueller drops a report saying collusion, yes, money laundering, yes, fraud, yes, and perhaps worse, and there's conspiracy and obstruction of justice and witness tampering at every step of the investigation, and you think every Republican's going to stand by and retweet? Well, now that, collusion hasn't been proven, I throw this out there for the consideration of the radio panel in the audience. Trump retweeted something called the Trump train today. Now, Donald Trump doesn't follow the Trump train, so he was out there actively seeking what memes to share. He shared one, a picture. It's a jail cell effectively, and it says across the top, now that Russia collusion is a proven lie, when do the trials for treason begin? And sitting in the jail cell is Barack Obama, Eric Holder, Bill Clinton, Loretta Lynch, and Mueller, and Podesta, and Rosenstein, and Hillary Clinton, and Huma Abedin, and of course James Comey. I mean, there's at least 3 Republicans in the pen in this retweet. I guess here's my point. I think Trump is panicking. No, Trump panics readily. He's very reactionary. But we'll see if he moves beyond this conversation about Mueller, because I think he knows the playtime. Rick Wilson, GOP strategist, been a very anti-never Trump sort of guy. He came out today and said, you know what? Trump now knows playtime is over. Playtime's over. The Democrats don't even yet have the power of the subpoena. You think Adam Schiff's going to sit by and not subpoena Rudy Giuliani and find out what sort of cooperating legal defense joint venture they had going on with Manafort's team? You don't think that's going to be exposed to the American people before or after the Mueller report gets dropped? I mean, just wait for the House committees, Dom. I can't wait for the gavels to get slammed continuously. Another hearing.
And we'll wait, and we wait, and we wait, and they'll stall, and they'll stall, and next thing you know, it'll be 2020, and here we go.
And the man will be completely unelectable.
Perhaps.
I mean, I'm not even suggesting that impeachment is the ultimate remedy and the best thing for the country. I've suggested perhaps that is not the case. But if Trump goes beyond his current circumstance, I mean, it's one thing to threaten to fire Mueller. It's another thing to threaten to pardon Manafort. But if he actually took the step to fire Mueller or to pardon Manafort, that little constitutional crisis, I think it would be happening. I think we might see even reaction from the American electorate, and hell, maybe if they still exist, from even a few conscientious Republicans. But I might be wrong. They might not exist. That might just be a myth and a wives' tale. There might be no Republicans left of moral character to stand up to this president. 844-967-2789. I'm talking to you, Gary.
This is the Trump party, Curdy. Just don't forget that. This is the Trump party. There are no Republicans left. There's Trumpsters and there's Democrats. And so far, they have protected him to the nth degree. Now, how long that goes, only time will tell. But I'm going by the trends. I think they will protect him to the very end. And unless there is a, conviction, unless there's a tape, hell, even if there's a tape, unless there's video, even if there's video, I'm not clear that they will ever come around to it. But let's get some audience participation here. Jake from Milwaukee, you are next. Thanks for calling, Jake. What do you got today?
Yeah, I think that the only way to get Trump out with some Republican help is that Mueller or whoever else has to prove that there was active treason after the election. I mean, and we have some, him cuddling up to Putin and all this other stuff. I mean, there's some stuff here. But other than that, I don't think Republicans could care less because they're a bunch of horrible human beings. That's the only way. It has to be active treason, working for Vladimir Putin and Russian interests. And I don't think very many Republicans are going to be tied to that if that is exposed. And it's quite possible it's true. Even Gary. Right, Gary?
Great, Gary. Thanks for the call, Jake.
Thanks.
I mean, I would like to think so, that there are going to be people who are of the conservative persuasion that don't like it when their guy. But, I mean, it's going to have to be something that is so blatant, so obvious, so provable that they cannot deny it. And if and when that happens, I would hope they do the right thing. But power protects power, man. I'm not convinced that they will, and I'm not I mean, come on. I mean, we had the private meetings between Putin and Trump already as president. I mean, he already told the Sergis where they got the Israeli secret information from. I mean, the guy's spilling his guts everywhere he goes, and let alone this whole Saudi Arabian issue. I mean, these are the things we know about, the things we don't know about every single day that the Trumps, not just Trump, the Trumps, plural, are in power. I think it just gets worse and worse, and until Republicans step up, we're just going to keep digging that hole. I hope Manafort comes through quickly.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Phone lines always open for your participation, even you conspiratorial. I guess I didn't say that very clearly. You treasonous conservatives. At 844-967-2789.
Impeachment is about cleansing the office.
This Russia thing.
Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office.
Can we call that treason? Why not?
When Trump gets the guillotine, you're going to be the first one to go.
Everybody has been outplayed.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella, Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines. Five Nines is more than just our name. It's the level of service you can expect. We provide 99.999% uptime. That's the highest availability and performance you can get. You have enough to worry about with your business data, web, security, and cloud services, so we'll manage your IT so you don't have to. Visit 59s.com. That's the number 5NINES.com.
It's a lot easier to measure how many times students use a semicolon correctly in an essay.
Educated educators talking education.
Than it is to measure how many wonderful ideas are in that essay.
Busted Pencils.
There is no teacher shortage.
With Dr. Tim Slecker.
There is a teacher exodus.
Featuring Matt Damon's mom.
You want to know what my mom would say?
We've had an intrusion into education.
Busted Pencils Radio. Saturdays at 11 on Resistance Radio.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin Uprising. Dom and Cruz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio. And you can join us on the phones, talk or text at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we've got a little Trump sound, but perhaps not the Trump everyone's thinking of, like, no! Ivanka Trump. You know, a little crooked Ivanka. She did speak today on the issue of Russian collusion. And we've got some sound. I think we should share it with the people. First and foremost, Ivanka, like her dad, she doesn't like being criticized. Well, I guess I share that with her as well. Cut 94.
People who want to see it as the same see it as the same. But the fact is that we all have private emails and personal emails to coordinate with our family. We all receive content to those emails. And there's no prohibition from using private email as long as it's archived.
Let's jump out of order here a little bit, Fancy Brain. Cut 92, it's nothing like when Hillary Clinton, wiped her server. Cut 92.
They're all stored on the White House system. So everything has been preserved, everything's been archived. There just is no equivalency between the two things.
Well, what's very similar between the two things is that she had her private attorney, just like Hillary Clinton did, go through and determine which of those emails were personal and which of those emails were government business. Nice that you can have your own person go through and make sure that happens and not necessarily show all of them to the world. It seems very similar, crooked Ivanka.
Well, here's the difference, Tom. Crooked Ivanka, she wasn't sharing classified information. Cut 93.
There really is no equivalency. All of my emails that relate to any form of government work, which was mainly scheduling and logistics and managing the fact that I have a home life and a work life, are all part of the public record.
Let's keep going. More Ivanka Trump. Cut 96. And by the way, she didn't delete her emails.
My emails have not been deleted, nor was there anything of substance, nothing confidential that was within them. So there's no connection between the two things.
Well, then why do it? And how do we know? Because what, you're telling us? Because your attorney went through and determined which ones were personal and which ones were not? I mean, I'm just wondering why it is that I should believe every word you're saying, but I can't believe what Clinton says.
Well, she's much prettier. Even her own dad finds her very sexually attractive.
I do not find Ivanka Trump attractive. No. Come on, man. She had more work done than Barbie doll. Let's keep going. Russia. Let's get to the Russia.
Wait, yes. Let's get to the Russia stuff.
She comments, the advisor to the president. Now, let's just address this quickly, if I may. The daughter gets top secret clearance. Why? Did Amy Carter get it? Did Billy Carter get it? Did the Bush twins get it? Did Sasha and Amalia get it? I mean, why is it? What is her qualifications other than being the offspring of this terrible human being, Donald Trump? Does she get access to all this information? And then, of course, she goes and does the same email thing. Just blows my mind.
She can blackmail the old man because she knows all the family secrets.
Let's hear what she has to say about the Russia secrets 102.
I know the facts as they relate to me and my family, and so I have nothing to be concerned about.
Oh, what about Jared?
Well,
what about your brother,
part
Don
of the family?
Jr.?
Part of the family. Apparently, there's nothing to be worried about. She knows it all. She's an advisor to the president, and she's telling us not to worry about it. Let's hear what else she said. 103.
I think it should reach its conclusion. I think it's been a long time that this has been ongoing.
Yeah, I bet you
Unlike those Benghazi hearings up on the House side, 4 years and counting?
Her father, Crudy, I don't know if you know this about Donald Trump, but he is a unifier. Next one, 104.
The country is very divided, and it has been very divided. And I have seen my whole life, my father is an incredible unifier.
What? For what?
He has unified 60% of Americans against him. They find him very unsatisfactory as their president. I think his disapproval rating, according to Gallup, 60%. That's not bad. That's a plurality of Americans. He is unified.
Well, so if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of him, would you?
Yeah, seriously. She is very candid with her father, Crudy 105.
I'm incredibly candid with him, but my discussions with him are between me and him.
As an advisor to the president or as a father and daughter?
Does pillow talk count?
Oh, gross. Crudy, a couple more. Let's going to jump ahead here. Why hasn't she spoken out? Well, she wasn't elected. Yeah, no crap. 108, please.
I wasn't elected, so my perspective and opinion is not as relevant. What's relevant is the policies of the White House.
Yeah, you're right. No. Your opinion and perspective is not relevant. You should not have access to top secret information of this country.
Arguably, neither should the old man.
Let's do one more. Cut 109.
I'm part of a team. Obviously, I have the extra ability as his daughter to talk with him both at the dinner table and in the office, and I share my opinions. But I was not elected by anyone.
No doubt!
Do you think they share the limo when the old man goes rolling through the McDonald's drive-thru for the, Big Mac meal?
Have you seen the
Diet Coke,
social media pictures of Trump kissing his wife and Trump kissing his daughter? Seems a little more passionate when he kisses his daughter.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, perhaps more incestuous thoughts for you. 844-967-2789. Matt Flynn, a fine guest, talking FoxCONn soon. Come back with us. Next.
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
I leave the politics to other people.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Tom Perez, chair of the Democratic National Committee. Scott Walker went on something of a Twitter storm, very Trumpian. What do you think this foretells for Scott Walker's future as the governor of the state of Wisconsin?
Wisconsinites have woken up. He talked about we need an optimistic message. How can you make people feel optimistic when you take away their health care? How can you make people optimistic when you take away the right to bargain? How can you make people feel optimistic when you're gerrymandering the heck out of districts?
Radio for the 99%.
Hey, everybody. Did you know that Scott Walker's no longer going to be the governor? There's no joke there. I'm just really, really happy.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property, or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009, or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
On marijuana, unfortunately, it's a public health issue and a public safety issue. I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on them anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Republican lawmakers in Madison are planning a lame duck session to limit the powers of incoming Governor Tony Evers and to add Republican appointees to a state board. The Republicans are also considering whether to move the date of the 2020 presidential primary to help a conservative state Supreme Court justice's chance of re-election. The Republicans claim the reason for the special session is to pass a subsidy package for Kimberly Clark, but they're still at least 6 votes short of doing that. Senate Minority Leader Jennifer Schilling, Democrat from La Crosse, said in a statement that instead of trying to save jobs, the lame duck session was really about trying to, quote, rush through more partisan bills, rig elections, and consolidate more power in the hands of Republican politicians. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest and a good friend. He is a former Dem gubernatorial candidate and twice elected chair of the Democratic Party of the great state of Wisconsin. He is Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn, welcome back. How you been, my friend?
Good to be here. Yeah, real good. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt, saw a piece, urbanmilwaukee.com. Bruce Murphy wrote a little piece, and he did feature some of your legal thoughts. Matt, if anyone doesn't know, you are a fine attorney at law as well. Matt Flynn, the subject, FoxCONn, and the question of the legality of the FoxCONn contract. Matt Flynn, let me ask you, do you think the deal made by the state of Wisconsin offering specific inducements to a singular company, Matt, is that legal under Wisconsin's Constitution?
No, it's not, Groot. And here's the thing: the contract is an illegal contract, and they've also breached it. So there's several reasons to set it aside. Even now that they've been at it for a year, they've tried to do a little work to show reliance, but this thing got rushed through, and it got rushed through without democratic scrutiny from the Republicans for good reason. It's unconstitutional. The Wisconsin Constitution says that you can't pass a law or a statute that benefits only one person or one company. It has to be of general applicability. And here they did three things that only apply to FoxCONn. One is they exempted them from the Court of Appeals jurisdiction, which is wrong. Number two, they exempted them from the requirement to file an environmental impact statement. And three, from the wetlands laws. So this is an unconstitutional contract, should be set aside.
Now, Matt, who would take up this case? Is it constituents? Is it, any person of standing in the state of Wisconsin? I mean, federal lawsuits get pretty pricey. What is the venue, and who would have standing to bring suit of this sort?
Right. This is sort of the arcane part of it. There's a difference between federal and state court. I would like to see it in federal court, but in state court in Wisconsin, a taxpayer has standing to do it. You have standing, I have standing, anybody has standing, if they're a taxpayer. In federal court, that's probably not the case. My hope is that Tony Evers and Josh Call will bring this action, because it'll have a lot of credibility. It's the governor and the attorney general. But in a pinch, any taxpayer, any several taxpayers can bring it. And here's the irony of this thing. You bring it, say you bring it in Racine County, you win under this unconstitutional law, it would go right to the Supreme Court, which is stacked with Republicans, and then they could overturn it and rule for FoxCONn, and then you'd have to hope that the Republican U.S. Supreme Court, which is also Republican right now, would take it. So there are some obstacles, but I think the more this is aired in public, the better, because it's a disaster. 4.1, 4.5 billion, somewhere in there, to a Chinese company to pay for all their risk. We privatize their risk. We make public their risk, the payment, and we privatize their profits. They get to keep them. It's just wrong.
Let me ask you, I would like to draw some analogies with Talgo and the high-speed rail. Scott Walker obviously killed high-speed rail. The federal proposals, the nearly $1 billion in infrastructure that would have been built. Let me ask you, the state of Wisconsin was on the hook for the broken promises made to the Talgo Corporation. My understanding, our liability, something to the tune of $50 million. Matt, if we, quote-unquote, break this deal utilizing the courts or some other means, do you see the state of Wisconsin being on the hook for damages to this foreign corporation? And if so, aren't the damages probably substantially less than $4.5 billion? Might it still be a good investment to just take our loss and move on, sir?
Right. Well, the point is, it would be less than $4.5 billion, but there would be no damages here. Here's the difference with Talco, very briefly. What Walker did with Talco was just plain wrong. That was a legal contract, not an illegal one. And a legal contract, and that was one where we were going to get something like $800 million from our own government to do it. There was no downside to the state. And he was running for president, and he knew he was going to go for president, so he decided to bust it so he could look like, quote, conservative. Well, if you break a legal contract, you have damages, and he got out of it for $50 million. It was wrong, everything he did. This is an unconstitutional, illegal contract, and as a precaution, I'm not advocating just breaking it. I'm advocating going to court, asking for an injunction and declaratory judgment, saying that it's unconstitutional. And until a court rules in our favor, we'll continue to comply. If you continue to comply, they have no damages, and when we win, it's a court saying that it's a no-good contract, and then there's no liability to the state at all.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. Matt Flynn, he's an attorney, former gubernatorial candidate here in the state of Wisconsin, talking about the FoxCONn deal. Another challenge, Matt, breach of contract. FoxCONn apparently was going to do a 10.5 plant. Now, among other news, come out that they're not going to do that. What can be done in this regard, sir?
Right. They have, in addition to the unconstitutionality of it, even assuming it were a valid contract, they breached the contract. Here, in return for the $4.1 billion, they were going to create a certain product, and now they're not going to do it because they weren't able to get the Owens Corning to open up a glass factory on site. So now they're going to be building, they say, instead of a generation 10.5 plant for 75-inch TVs, they're going to be doing a smaller Gen 6 plant, and mostly manufactured by robots. They didn't tell us that. And they're bringing in workers from China. They didn't tell us that. And they're going to be bringing in workers from elsewhere in the United States. We got snookered. I mean, the fact is that Walker doesn't have the ability to negotiate something like this. He got taken to the cleaners. And FoxCONn is going to get over $4 billion to use robots, Chinese workers, other workers, to make a different product. And I'll reveal something on this show. They are also making inquiries to simply be contract manufacturers for Wisconsin companies and require their intellectual property in return, as well as money. They met with Rockwell, and they want to be their contract manufacturer. And they said, by the way, we also want your intellectual property. And Rockwell told them to jump in the lake. This $100 million they're supposedly giving with the UW, they're going to want the intellectual property of these companies that gets any of the money. This crowd is going to come in, one of the biggest polluters in Asia, and they're going to come in. We're going to let them discharge into Lake Michigan with minimal oversight, and then we are going to give them over $4 billion to be a contract manufacturer for American companies to get their IP. It is absolutely disgusting what's happened, and I want to see Evers and Call step up to the plate on this.
Matt, Bruce Murphy points out in his piece that, regarding the violation of the contract from the 10.6 to the Gen 6, any verbal conversations, perhaps as it pertained to FoxCONn or Corning, could have an impact. What's your thought on that?
I don't agree with. There's a thing called parole evidence, P-A-R-O-L. It has nothing to do with criminals going to jail. Parole evidence means oral evidence. So if you have a contract with somebody and they're supposed to do something, and they say, oh, but I talked to Matt and he told me privately it's okay, you don't have to do it, that should not be admissible. There are circumstances under which it can be, but that's a whole different area of the law. The fact is that Owens Corning came in, they wanted to be FoxCONn. Kimberly Clark wants to be FoxCONn. Everybody wants to be FoxCONn. Right. And so finally, Walker chickened out. He didn't have the guts to, he's given away the store to Republican companies. So he says, no, you can't come in. We're not going to pay for you to come in. And then FoxCONn says, well, no deal on the Generation 10. Well, that's contrary to the contract. It's also contrary to say we're going to create all these jobs. By the way, now they're going to be Chinese, robots, and outside of Wisconsin. That is flat out a violation of the contract. And it's in bad faith. FoxCONn has a duty of good faith and fair dealing, it's called in the law. And it has not shown that in other contracts. And I think we've got to stand up to them.
Well, and we're also not dealing with good faith legislators. The Republican, through the Department of Administration, gave the Legislative Fiscal Bureau a set of variables for them to crunch. And, of course, many of those inputs are just not feasible. The workforce will not be 100% in the state of Wisconsin. They didn't use any sort of discounted cash flows to account for the time value of money. It is just all around a terrible deal. Matt, I know you've been on this since we first started talking last year. Have you had any conversations specifically with the Evers team, the transition? Any interest in getting involved on that side with Evers and the government?
Well, after the primary, I called Tony, and I had several conversations with him, and I said that I'd be happy to support him and help him. And I have mentioned FoxCONn to him in the past. I have not spoken to him since the general election, so I've not had a discussion with him specifically on whether he would start litigation. But several things have happened. The transition team reached out yesterday to my campaign manager, Brian Kennedy, and asked for some backup to some of the things that I had said in the article, specifically why it is that I think that the enabling legislation and the contract limit these benefits to FoxCONn. And, of course, I referred him to Dave DeBruin, a friend of mine who is a top-notch litigator who I've been talking to about how we'd structure this litigation if he and I had to bring it. Now that we've actually elected Walker and Call, there'd be a lot more credibility to their doing it.
Evers and Call, not Walker. Evers.
Evers and Call. Right. No, that's Evers and Call. So no, if it's Walker, I mean, Walker, honest to God, betrayed the state. He gave the state away, and it's a bad deal.
Matt, I want to get your reaction to what has happened post-election. The Republicans apparently showing their true colors, and we always suspected as much, but I never expected the Senate Majority Leader, Scott Fitzgerald, to come out and verbally express to reporters yesterday that they want to move an election in the state of Wisconsin for the benefit of a singular conservative candidate. Matt, when you saw the headlines, what was your reaction to Fitzy's plan to move the elections in 2020?
Well, I think it's wrong. The clerks have all gotten together, even the Republican clerks, and said there'll now be 3 elections. There'll be the February primary, there'll be the April presidential primary, and then there'll be another election for Supreme Court, and it's all being done to supposedly lower the turnout. Well, you know what I think is going to happen is twofold. If they do this, and there could be a challenge in court, it might or might not succeed, I think the Republicans are stabbing themselves. It is an act of harakiri, stabbing themselves in the stomach. The electorate, when they're paying for millions of dollars for 3 elections that weren't necessary to help this one guy, Kelly, who, if you take a look at his credentials and you take a look at his background, is a weak candidate, shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. If you take all that into account, they have gift-wrapped and issued to the Democratic Party now and in the 2020 elections and beyond. If you take a look at Rebecca Dallett, when she ran, she killed the opposition, and Kelly is not even as able as the guy she beat. And he was an appointee also. So you're going to get somebody along like a Rebecca Dallett, well, kill this guy. And so what they are doing, you know what they remind me of? Do you remember when Gorbachev and Yeltsin started to liberalize Russia and those thugs, those fleshy thugs with the widely spaced eyes who, try to arrest them and turn it back to a communist country? That's what these guys remind me of. They want to stand in the way of the election, and all they're doing is embarrassing themselves. Kelly's going down regardless of when that election is, and they're just handing an issue to the Democrats.
Now, Matt, let me ask you, the ability to hamstring Tony Evers, obviously the Republicans, they still have their lame duck session. It's not going to be for the benefit of Kimberly Clark, which was the ruse, which was the explanation why they were going to do it. But be it Fitzgerald, be it Robin Vos, be it the current governor, Scott Walker, they all seem willing and able to restrict, be it the power of appointment of Tony Evers or the ability to set administrative rules by Tony Evers. I mean, they really want to rein in the power of the chief executive. That might not be such a bad thing were it not for the motivation to take it away from the Democrat that just won election. Matt, I want to get your opinion.
Right. 2 things on that. One is they did exactly that in North Carolina when the governor got in and the legislature was still Republican. Democrat got in, the Republican legislature. That went to court, and the Republicans lost. So depending on what they do, this is going to go to court, and it's going to get overturned. Secondly, they are simply handing this issue to the Democrats as you look at it. They lose an election, and then they're trying to screw up the works. The third, when you do look at it, if I'm Tony Evers, and frankly, I like to see Tony get very aggressive, speak out about this, and point out that when he gets in, he is the veto power, and he is the power of the executive order. And so the minute he gets in, going forward, he wouldn't be able to interfere with this, but going forward, if I were he, I would use the executive order power very, very vigorously. This gerrymandered legislature, the Republicans got hundreds of thousands of votes less statewide than the Democrats, and yet the Republicans have over 60% of the assembly. That is just wrong, and this is an illegitimate legislature. It's a Russian Duma that's trying to hurt the state. It should be seen as illegitimate. They should be seen as enemies of the state. And if I were the governor, I'd be a little more outspoken right now, and I'd use the executive order to rearrange this government along with my veto power.
Well, Scott Walker said that this was no rejection, apparently just too much voter turnout for his taste.
Right.
But, Matt, it is very clear to me that these Republicans think they're still in charge. Robin Vos certainly doesn't see this as some sort of blue wave denouncement. He's still got, nearly a supermajority in the Assembly. Matt, I understand Tony Evers, a nice guy. But Tony Evers, to my opinion, needs to come out and fight like hell right now, or this will set a tone. Matt, what is the proper response from Governor Evers?
I think the proper response is for him to start going through the 72 counties of the state and holding press conferences, every one, saying that we are not going to permit a party that lost, and it lost for good reason. It lost for the very simple reason that it has been vandalizing the state and injuring the state for 8 years. We are not going to permit them to continue to vandalize us through the special session. And I would call them out on health care and education, on every particular issue that they're up to. I just got off the phone with the people up in Marinette who are fighting the Back 40 mine and are fighting the pollution, the Tyco pollution of their groundwater. And they're going to be having a rally up there. I told them I would come up. I think it's very important, and I'm going to say this right now, that Tony Evers and Josh Call and Tammy Baldwin go up there. They've been victimized by the Republicans, by Walker's refusal to enforce environmental laws, and there has to be a presence. The bully pulpit. What do you think Franklin Roosevelt or Harry Truman or John F. Kennedy would have done? They would have, if somebody pulled this on them, and Bill Clinton, they would have gone around the state, around the country, and just jammed it down the Republicans' throat. You cannot function as a polite education bureaucracy with vandals.
Tony Evers, call us, 844-967-2789. Want to thank our good friend Matt Flynn. He was a Dem gubernatorial candidate, twice elected chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. And, of course, he's a friend of ours. We are the Devil's Advocates, Real Resistance Radio. We'll be right back.
FoxCONn will help Wisconsin win the 21st century.
So you get nothing. You lose.
You're a crook. You're a cheat and a swindler.
Having a great time.
You are the enemy of the people.
Hi, this is Demi, pharmacist at Hyatt, locally owned pharmacy in the community of Milwaukee. Simplifying lives, one prescription at a time is our goal. Do free delivery of your medications to your home and at work. All your meds are brought together in one convenient dosage package individualized to your medication needs. We set up a house call with a licensed pharmacist to assist with medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit our website, HAYATRX.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The Devil's Advocates.
James Santelle, he's a former U.S. attorney. He's our guest live on Brady.
Once again, a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen, to talk about the latest news breaking as we speak.
The FBI raided Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney, but once they got there, then they went back and got a more thorough warrant and said, we'll take everything.
My first reaction is you need to teach criminal constitutional law. You've got it just right in terms of the process.
They are kind of a big deal.
This is a really big deal.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
I am
I'm still living with your ghost.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming live on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio. You can always join us, talk or text at 844-967-2789.
Want to thank our most recent guest, Matt Flynn, a former Dem gubernatorial candidate, of course, also former chair of the Democratic Party of the great state of Wisconsin. And I have no doubt that Matt Flynn would be out there shouting it, right, at least from the soapbox, if not from the mountaintops, kill FoxCONn and stand up to these Republicans. Good advice I think he offers you, Tony Evers.
Strong words. Russian Duma, enemy of the people.
Really, you are the enemy of the people.
I thought I was the enemy of the people. Apparently, Matt Flynn thinks the Republicans, through, of course, their gerrymandering here in the state of Wisconsin, are the enemy of the people. But, you know, strong words.
We've got a little bit of breaking news here in the great state of Wisconsin. Scott Bauer at the Associated Press tweets out, well, it's John Nygren returning as the Assembly co-chair of the Joint Finance Committee. He's returning with Senator Alberta Darling.
Oh, no.
Your girl, Dom.
Yeah.
And Dom, because Republicans have majorities in both the Senate and Assembly, they will hold a 12-4 majority. 12-4 Republican majority on the Joint Finance Committee. Good luck, Dems. And also, our pal Scott Bauer tweets out, Assembly Speaker, you know, at Speaker Boss Voss, names 2 new members to the powerful Budget Writing Joint Finance Committee. One to replace Dale Kowenga, who won election to the Senate. The other replaces Mary Felskowski. The new members are Rep. Terry Katzma and Rep. Shannon Zimmerman. Those, of course, 2 Republicans to replace 2 Republicans in a 12-4 majority on the Joint Finance Committee, despite the fact that Democrats, had about 55% of the votes in the legislative races, and yet somehow Republicans, we know somehow, Republicans hold, over 60% of the seats on the Assembly side.
I wonder if these new Republicans are going to continue to think that Scott Walker fixed a $3.6 billion budget deficit and that perhaps this FoxCONn deal is a great deal. You know, is there any reflection whatsoever with these Republicans on this? I mean, let's assume, and I do, that the FoxCONn was strictly a political deal to try to keep Walker in power. Remember 250,000 jobs that he promised here in the state of Wisconsin way back when? And now his ass is gone, and we still have not reached those 250,000 jobs. That's a failure, Governor Walker. We could have done nothing. And if we had stayed in historical statistical track with our Midwestern neighbors, we would be much better off as a state than we are right now. But the Republicans, is there any acceptance of that? Am I just, screaming over here? I mean, as an independent-leaning kind of guy who understands a little bit about finance, I'm a little concerned that maybe these Republicans are not going to change their stripes, Crudy.
Well, Boss Voss, Speaker Boss Voss, has said, Tony Evers, keep your hands off of FoxCONn. They think this is a great deal. At least for those in Pleasant Prairie, which is the constituency of Robin Voss, the Assembly Speaker. So Boss Voss likes this deal. He likes it quite a bit. But the rest of us that do math and pay taxes, we think it's a sucker bet. And we lost. And we voted the sucker out of office. And let's throw out the bad deal with the bad governor. Matt Flynn's got it right in this case. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. We have it right at least 60% of the time. Come back with us. The happy hour commences right now.
Whoa, yeah, watch the world die. Yeah, watch the world die.
No, I'm going to stay for a while. How about that? Freedom.
Man, come on. I had a rough night, and I hate the f***ing Eagles, man.
Go home and get your f***ing shine box.
Have you outgrown your house? Are you sick of apartment living? Not ready to buy but know you need to move? Hi, folks. This is Tom Hartman for CCL Management in Middleton. You should consider moving up to one of the finer rental homes CCL Management represents. Unique houses and condos, always clean, most are pet friendly. Visit cclmanagement.com today to find your new home. CCL Management, Dane County's premier leasing and property management company.
Call CCL Management at 833-0009. That's 833-0009. Or visit cclmanagement.com today.
Josh Call, the candidate for Wisconsin Attorney General.
Do you think voter ID had a suppressive effect, not on 100 voters, but on thousands of voters and perhaps tipped the election to Donald Trump?
This is an issue that came up at our trial. And first of all, I should thank you guys because we actually introduced into evidence the recording of you interviewing Dale Schultz, who was talking about the passage of the voter ID law. That was one of our pieces of evidence.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Manafort pardon. Answering Mueller. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump tells the New York Post he has no reason to rule out the possibility of pardoning his former campaign chairman Paul Manafort. The Mueller Russia team yesterday ended a cooperation deal with Manafort for repeatedly lying. Meanwhile, CNN has uncovered the president's answers to two of Mueller's questions. Here's Dana Bash.
Number one, the president told special counsel that Roger Stone did not tell him about WikiLeaks. And number two, that the president was also not told about the 2016 Trump Tower meeting between his son, campaign officials, and a Russian lawyer who promised dirt on Hillary Clinton.
On Capitol Hill, correspondent Sundan Sirfani reports effort to protect the Mueller Russia probe failed in the Senate today.
This bill to protect Robert Mueller does not have the support of Republican leaders here in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, as recently as yesterday, said he did not think it was necessary. He says he doesn't have any indication that President Trump is going to move to fire Mueller.
Disgruntled senators angry a briefing on Saudi Arabia did not include CIA Director Gina Haspel, Lindsey Graham among them.
Any key vote, anything that you need me for to get out of town, ain't doing it until we hear from the CIA.
The Senate's advanced a bill to end U.S. military support for the Saudi war in Yemen. Democrats have nominated Nancy Pelosi for House Speaker.
It was so inspiring to hear my colleagues place my name in nomination once again for Speaker of the House.
Pelosi must win a vote of the entire new House in January to become Speaker. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is hinting the Fed may slow its pace on interest rate increases.
The economic effects of our gradual rate increases are uncertain and may take a year or more to be fully realized. There is no preset policy path.
The Dow rose 617.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
When you shop Goodwill, you don't just bring home a vintage dress or cat lamp. You bring home so much good to your community because everything you buy funds local job training and more. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
5/9, your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Customs and Border Protection officials have launched an internal review of the tactics used by agents during Sunday's clash with some Central American migrants when tear gas was used on advancing migrants.
Even with the internal review of the use of tear gas, CBP Deputy Commissioner Robert Perez says he stands by his agents.
Those deployments of the non-lethal devices were in direct response to our agents being attacked by projectiles being hurled at them.
He says tear gas is the best way to de-escalate situations like that when hundreds of migrants rushed the border where assaulting agents began tearing down fencing attempting to enter the U.S. illegally. Now, it's unclear how long the internal review will take. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
Police in Florida say a woman drove onto President Trump's Mar-a-Lago property and parked in front of the club's security office after the Thanksgiving visit ended. The woman wasn't able to speak clearly and nodded off when police were questioning her. I'm Mike Moss.
As humans, we ask ourselves all kinds of questions. But what if we were forced to ask ourselves a question every day that affected the outcome of the most basic things, the most important things in our lives? The question is, what is your sexual orientation or gender identity? And the answer is the difference between keeping your job or getting fired. The answer is the difference between staying in your home or getting evicted. The answer is the difference between receiving medical treatment or not. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against people based on their answer to this question. LGBT Americans have the right to say I do, but they don't have the same basic rights as everyone else. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. The Milwaukee Common Council has voted to override 4 of Mayor Barrett's 5 vetoes to the city's $1.5 billion budget for next year. The override issues include the city's lead crisis, food deserts, abandoned properties, and hiring police officers. The aldermen agreed to a compromise on a 5th veto by the mayor. One measure the council voted to override is $200,000 in funding for a healthy food establishment fund. Outgoing Governor Scott Walker has reached a deal with the Forest County Potawatomi to reduce its payment to the state by up to $250 million if a new casino cuts into the tribe's revenue. Outside tonight, a chance of light snow, lows in the mid-20s. You're listening to Real Resistance Radio.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, we are sliding into the 4 o'clock happy hour, and I'm happy because I'm looking forward to Friday and fish fry on Gary.
Yeah.
I am confirmed we are going to the packing house. We're meeting about 6 o'clock, and Gary's buying me some fish. I understand you and maybe even Fancy Brian coming with.
Well, if Gary's buying, I'm in. Brian's in too. Yeah, it's all happening.
Dom, we always love hearing from our audience, especially when they lose electoral bets to us. Gary, you should ask Dom how long it took him to pay off the Mitt Romney electoral vote bet.
Oh man, that one was a doozy. You gave me a break though, man. I appreciate that, Crudy.
I did give you a break. That's the last one you get. We'll get to the audience in just a minute. 844-967-2789.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, 844-96-PARTY.
Yes, party. That's easier to remember. I want to throw a Dave Zawiefel piece out there. Reports of progressivism's death are greatly exaggerated. A little more backyard politics. One of the many tributes paid to Wisconsin AFL-CIO President Emeritus Phil Neuenfeld when he passed away earlier this month came from longtime colleague of his, Public Union veteran Rick Badger. Here's the quote. Phil was on the side of workers, but he wasn't against business. He wanted businesses to succeed. He believed if you had a well-trained workforce, they would work better, the business they worked for would do better, and the city where the business was located would be better. It wasn't about us versus them. That captured the true essence of what Neuenfeld stood for as a union leader. No responsible labor leader wants to make it impossible for an employer to operate his or her business at a profit. They want business to do well and prosper. But they also want the employer to share the successes with working people who helped make it possible. In other words, they only ask for a level playing field. One example of employer-union partnership we see here in Madison is the free annual holiday festival and lights display at Olin Park. I like taking the kids down there, Dom, which is delighting families from now until January 1. It's an annual holiday gift stemming from the cooperation between electrical contractors and their unions. But relationships like that are a far cry from the message that comes from the leadership of Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, the state's powerful business lobby that has a seemingly bottomless war chest to finance politicians and judicial candidates to do their bidding when the chips are down. The organization, with the take-no-prisoners reputation, claims 4,800 members, many of whom are indeed businesses with union contracts and good employee relationships. But you'd never know it, though, by the path the WMC follows in its transparent attempt to wipe out all unions and worker protections. In WMC's book, there should be no such thing as a level playing field when it comes to employers and employees. And for the past two decades, WMC has pulled out all the stops to fund its anti-worker muscle. It began by lavishing millions on the election of conservative state Supreme Court justices and now practically owns the court. I mean, hell, Dom, WMC wrote the "we don't have to recuse" rule for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and then when they came before the courts, after contributing something to the tune of like $8.2 million for election of members of the Supreme Court, you know, we call them the conservative bloc, well, under the recusal rules written by WMC, they felt no need to recuse, but I digress. It was the 2010 election of Scott Walker in the overly conservative legislature that put WMC in the driver's seat. For these past 8 years, it has received everything it wanted. No increase in the $7.25 minimum wage, the destruction of public and teachers' unions, a law making Wisconsin a so-called right-to-work state, the repeal of long-standing environmental regulations to, air quotes, free business to do as it pleases, and the end of prevailing wage rates and the quashing of local laws on livable wages and family leave, just for starters. Yet this still wasn't enough to sate WMC's greed. Only Tony Evers' win over WMC's favorite son, Scott Walker, may have at least slowed it for now, my little buddy.
How time has changed. WMC, the result of a 1970s merger of the State Chamber of Commerce and the Wisconsin Manufacturers Association. A key aide to the late Republican Governor Warren Knowles, Paul Hassett, engineered that merger and wanted to serve as its CEO until his retirement in 1985. Under Hassett, WMC was a strong voice for the state's business interests. It mostly supported Republicans and lobbied hard for business legislation. But WMC recognized there were other interests that government must serve as well. Politics wasn't an all-or-nothing game. There could be winners on competing sides. WMC recognized that in the 70s, Democratic Pat Lucey did more to help Wisconsin manufacturers than had many GOP governors. It wasn't long after Hassett retired from WMC began changing its stripes. In the course of a few years, it became a strident political force. Not only should business get every break, WMC espoused businesses shouldn't have to pay state taxes at all. Individuals could pick up the slack. WMC's current CEO, former banking lobbyist, Kurt Bauer, we know him, Crudy.
Yes, we do.
Tipped his hand last month when on the eve of the November elections, he wrote in the organization's magazine that WMC and the Scott Walker administration had effectively, quote, reversed the failed 100-year progressive experiment in Wisconsin, unquote. Apparently, I'm still smarting from a column I wrote about WMC 4 years ago that was accompanied by a Mike Konopacki cartoon depicting Bauer putting lipstick on a pig and that resembled Scott Walker. Bauer implied that everything is just fine now in Wisconsin thanks to the governor's pro-business, anti-labor agenda. That's a good-looking pig, he claimed, but it appears a majority of Wisconsin citizens didn't agree. Bauer, though, was showing not only his complete ignorance of the history of Wisconsin's progressive movement and what it did to bring economic equality to the state, but also what it meant for the state's business climate. He obviously doesn't know how the Wisconsin idea, a progressive initiative, forged a relationship among the government, the university, and state businesses to build and expand with new ideas and research, just for starters. Perhaps Bauer thinks it would still be okay for unregulated banks to cheat farmers, for insurance companies to refuse to pay claims, for corporations to conspire to put small companies out of business with questionable sales practices, for paper mills to pollute the Wisconsin River, and for manufacturers to cover wetlands with parking lots.
Hey, be careful. Kurt Bauer might say, do I get all of those things? Because those sound like great bottom line enhancers.
The brash big business CEO is probably right, however, that his organization and Walker did damage the state's long history of progressiveness. Where Bob LaFollette and his crew drove out the special interests and removed their chokehold on lawmakers and judges, WMC and its allies have bought and bullied their way back into control. Perhaps he shouldn't forget what happened when they began abusing their power and insisting everything go their way. Those progressives are far from dead.
That was Dave Zawiefel at the Cap Times. You are our fair audience. We want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. Who are we going to first on?
Let's do David from Mequon. Hey, David, welcome to the show. What do you got for us today?
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
Awesome, man.
Good, man. Happy holidays. Been a while, Dave.
Yes, same to you. I overran Thanksgiving, but that's a whole different matter. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in with what Mr. Flynn just said. I actually agree with him on the part with, the changing the election. I don't think it's going to matter. And it is costing the state millions of dollars, which is crazy when you consider, how many things need to be fixed in the state yet.
Yeah.
So I agree with him on that part. With the gerrymander, the only thing I'll say is with this. We have 72 counties, and Call and Evers won like 17 of the 72 counties. So, what it shows is that throughout the state, even the counties, where you go up north or in the middle of the state, it is more Republican, not by a lot, but there's definitely an advantage there.
Yeah, but Dave, you're talking geography. You're not talking population. Yeah. You're not talking voters. You're talking pure square footage, man. Geography matters very little. If you look at the electoral map of Donald Trump, yeah, America looks like a very red place. But when you actually attach the population figures to those that voted for Trump or those that voted for Scott Walker, it is a smaller number than those of us that supported, let's say, Hillary Clinton or Tony Evers.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with you guys. If you look at Milwaukee and Dane County, it's overwhelmingly Democratic. But the thing is, again, you have to have some balance in the fact that you don't want to have too much central power in, if you look at like Chicago has got all that power over the rest of the state of Illinois.
Yeah, but it's also the third largest city in the country, and it's not about decentralized power, David. In my opinion, I just want a reflection of the electorate, whatever it may be, and we don't have that. Not in Wisconsin, not under these gerrymandered maps, man.
Well, if you look at along the coastline in Wisconsin, going up to Door County, Sheboygan, Manitowoc, Appleton area, all that stuff. That's very Republican. Washington County, where I live, Ozaukee County.
Not as much as it used
much
to be,
less
Dave.
so this time, man.
Not since Real Resistance Radio came into existence.
Hey, David, let me ask you a question.
You knocked off a few of them.
Well, hopefully we opened a few eyes, David. Let me ask you this with regard to the Republicans trying to change the election, add an election, specifically to help a Republican on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Whether or not it actually works or doesn't work, what's your thought on the philosophy of changing the machinations so it can benefit them? Do you have a problem with that?
Right. I don't agree with it. I think, at the end of the day, again, it's one thing, and I don't think that the Supreme Court should be politicized, but that is by doing this, it is making it more politicized for the simple reason that they're doing it obviously to protect Mr. Kelly, and I do think at the end of the day, though, that maybe going forward, I do agree with the aspect that if it was set up way in advance, where it isn't tied in with the presidential election, I do agree there is some validity that way. But to do it kind of at this last moment now and do that, no, I do not agree with that part.
Well, I appreciate your admission, Dave, and I feel like somewhere, although my memory is somewhat faulty like the president, I feel like you should have bet me or did bet me. You should be buying me some fish fry or something, Dave. Dave's gone. You'll be next, then. That means there's phone lines open at 844-967-2789. We are the Devil's Advocates, running short on AM frequency radio time in the Milwaukee market, but still time for your calls. And then we're going live to stream. Don't forget to follow us there. RealResistanceRadio.com. We'll be right back.
Sometimes the best laid plans are still end with blood on your hands.
The process is rigged. This whole election is being rigged. I alone can fix it. Believe me.
Hi, my name is Shantae, your local Hyatt pharmacist. With more than 10 locations here in the Milwaukee area, we're here to simplify your lives one script at a time. With free delivery to your home or work, where all your medications are brought together in one convenient dosage packaged, individualized to your daily medication regimen. We set up in-house calls with the licensed pharmacist to assist in medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit us at our website, hayatrx.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only ordering classic corner tavern.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. I had no idea how hard it would be and what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood and ways for me to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP. It had articles about the basics, but also information about the hurdles I was facing.
Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Resistance broadcasts 7 days a week here on Real Resistance Radio. Tune in Saturdays for Citizen Action's Battleground Wisconsin as it rages from 10 to 11 a.m., followed by Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk with Dr. Tim Slecker, airing 11 a.m. to noon. Then it's the voice of the voiceless, champion of the working class. Earl Ingram's Saturday show is live from 12 to 2 p.m. From 2 to 3, State Rep Joe Costa Zamaripa hosts the Joe Costa Show, and Maggie Dawn leads the Dawn of the Resistance 3 to 5. Mandatory listening, always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It's the 420 break. You can join us on the phones at 844-967-2789.
I got something quickly, Dom. I understand legalized marijuana, recreational, full legalization, coming to the state of Michigan a week from Friday. It feels like it's damn near time for a road trip.
I think I need to go visit Cousin Joe in Detroit. Yeah, I know. It's just unbelievable. And all these Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin going to go to super duper extraordinary special session, perhaps. And I'm just throwing this out there. You should listen to the referendum we just had. 70% of the people want legal weed in Wisconsin. Why don't you get on that?
88% if you factor in medicinal in some of the referendums that were voted on.
844-967-2789. Pat from the east side, you are up. Thanks for calling, Pat. What do you got?
Well, good afternoon. I'm calling because I want people to become aware of the of the special session that we need to be prepared for that next week. The Republicans are probably trying to sneak it in with almost no notice. But anyway, as a public service, and for those who might be able to get to Madison, I have a few suggestions for signs and posters and chants. And I'm wondering if you allow me to read a few of them.
A couple of them quick, man.
Okay, well, all right, so let's start. Robin Voss, you're grabbing public power like Trump grabs private parts. Second, let's be frank, your special session's just a prank. Robin Voss, Scott Fitzgerald, go to confession after this session. This is real election fraud. In 2020, Wisconsin voters will see you out. And here's another one. Wisconsin, what we really need is legal weed.
Yes!
A plus for that one, Pat.
I would make that sign. I will take that sign up to the special super-duper session. I will be there. If there's special session, I will be there at least partially. Dom, I'll come and do this show, but I'll certainly make the trip up to the state capitol.
Let's keep going and get some more callers in this segment. Mark from the SAC, you are up. Thanks for calling, Mark. What do you got today?
Yeah, I got to wonder, thinking a lot here on this, that the special session might just reinvigorate the resistance to some extent, because now we know that the battle is not yet won, and I mean they're going to continue this crap all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So if they think that we're going to lay back, they're going to be able to sneak this stuff through, they might just be activating the resistance.
Well, the battle rages on, Mark, but my concern is we can scream about it all we want on the radio, and we can make legal weed and get our signs up, but does any of that impact these Republicans? They're going to do what they are going to do, in my humble opinion, regardless of how terrible it is for the state of Wisconsin, regardless of what the citizens actually voted for in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, we've got to make them personally pay for some of this stuff, because Robin Voss has businesses. I mean, I suggest that we just get people to start, canceling contracts and stuff with these guys that are not.
I'm not sure
this stuff with them. Yeah.
I'm not sure if people sign contracts with the Popcorn King. I think that's more of a retail outlet sort of a deal.
But if you're not buying his popcorn, I mean, that is going to cost him money. And maybe he doesn't care anymore. Maybe that's just a side, the little sideline that he can claim that he's a small businessman. But I mean, that we have to make these guys pay. That they don't go out to a restaurant, without being recognized for what they are. I mean that.
Yeah, but what are you going to do
maybe that's being impolite?
What am I going to throw popcorn at Voss? I disagree with this whole let's make it difficult for them to go out in public. I would like to make it difficult for them to continue on their high horses, to continue with their malfeasance. But no, let Robin Voss have his hamburger at lunch.
Well,
I'm okay with
I don't know, man. I mean, it's totally fine to get in his face a little bit and say, hey, man, why don't you listen to the will of the people? Hey, man, where's the legal weed? That's totally fine. He wants to serve the public. He ain't doing it. We can call him out on it. Curtis from Stallis. I know you like the legal weed, man. What's up?
Oh, yeah, legal everything. No. We need to. I want to do a shout-out. Matt Flynn, thank you very much for what he's doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You guys are awesome too. But I mean, that's really nice that he's doing that, because let me tell you, we people can make a change. So if you think we can't, we can. Even though these Republicans, Robin Voss and all these other ones, just because they think they're Republicans, they run for themselves. We still pay their salaries. We the people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, we don't. Relatively speaking, the $51,000 that Robin Voss gets plus, per diem. I mean, that is nothing
per
like
diem. That's where you make the big bucks.
That's nothing like the enhancement he probably gave himself, because he, a manufacturer in his own right, also is paying effectively 0 state income taxes.